Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, brothers and sisters. In today's video, we're going to be reading the next chapter of the Risale-i Nur, the third word. So, let's just dive right into it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, O you people, worship. So this chapter of the Risale-i Nur, like previous chapters of the Risale-i Nur, start by referencing a verse from the Quran. O you people, worship. Now, worship has different meanings, it has different aspects, okay? In the previous chapter of the Risale-i Nur, the second word, we were looking at ghaib. There was a verse from the Quran that was referenced, those who believe in the unseen, which is ghaib. And ghaib also has different meanings as well. And so does worship. Okay, worship can mean doing religious obligations like prayer, like dhikr. It also has other meanings such as reverence, right? Revering God. To revere is to hold something in high admiration, okay? So for example, as Muslims, it's our obligation. As believers, we must revere God. We must hold him in high admiration. Okay, he is the Almighty Creator. He reigns supreme over the universe. Okay. Now, in this context, worship here means prayer and dhikr. Okay, and so this chapter of the Risale-i Nur is going to be about this verse in the Quran. If you want to understand what great profit and happiness lie in worship, and what great loss and ruin lie in vice and dissipation, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, listen to and take heed of the following story, which is in the form of a comparison. So the Risale-i Nur is telling us, and the Risale-i Nur, by the way, is the tafsir, the Quranic commentary that I'm reading. The Risale-i Nur is telling us that there is great profit and happiness in worship, but there's also great loss and ruin in vice and dissipation. Okay? So if you do worship, there's great happiness, there's great profit. If you don't do worship and you fall into dissipation and you fall into vice, there is great ruin and loss. And vice means immoral behavior. And dissipation means overindulging in worldly pleasures. Okay, like the exact definition is indulging in like sensual pleasures, okay, but we can also call that worldly pleasures. And it's going to give us, and so the Risale-i Nur is going to give us an analogy or a story to help illustrate this point, okay? So let's first read this paragraph and then we'll go over it. So, one time, two soldiers received orders to proceed to a distant city. They set off and traveled together until the road forked. The fork was a man who said to them, "The road on the right causes no loss at all, and 9 out of 10 of those who take it receive a high profit and experience great ease, while the road on the left provides no advantages, and 9 out of 10 of its travelers make a loss. But they are the same as regards distance, only there is one difference. Those who take the left-hand road, which has no rules and no one in authority, travel without baggages and arms. They feel an apparent lightness and deceptive ease, whereas those traveling on the right-hand road, which is under military order, are compelled to carry a kit bag full of nutritious rations for okkas, or so in weight, and a superb army rifle of about 2 kiyas, which will overpower and rout every enemy." Okay, so let's just stop here and try to understand what the Risale-i Nur is telling us. Okay. So we have two soldiers, okay? And once again, this is an analogy that the Risale-i Nur is giving us. We have two soldiers, who, let's say they're under the leadership of a commander. And their commander tells them, go to this city. Maybe it's to like fortify, maybe it's to help fortify the city, to regroup with another army there. Whatever the reason, okay? So yeah, let's say their commander tells them, go to this city. And so the two soldiers, they start, going towards that city. Going down this path, but eventually, the path forks into two other paths, okay? And at the point, so at the fork where, the path forks off into two separate paths, there's a man. Okay? Now the man tells them, now the road on the right, there's no loss at all. All right? People will experience great ease and they will great profit and a great ease. Okay? 9 out of 10 of those people will succeed. 9 out of 10. Okay? Now, the path on the left is a different story. 9 out of 10, most people who take that path will experience great loss. Okay? They will experience great loss and it's unbeneficial. Okay? However, they are the same as regards to distance. So both paths go the same distance. But there is one important difference between the two paths. Okay? On one of the paths, so on the right path, there is law, there is order. Okay, so it's under military order. Okay, so there are rules. Also, when you take the right path, you need to carry rations with you. And you need to carry a kit bag of rations, and you need to carry a rifle with you. Now, the other path, the left one, right, the anarchic one, the one which doesn't have military order, there's no rules there. Plus, you don't have to carry anything. Okay? Seems nice. Now, let's continue reading and see what happens to these two soldiers. Like, what do they do? What are their decisions? Okay? So, after the two soldiers had listened to what this instructive man had to say, the fortunate one took the road to the right. He loaded the weight of one batsman onto his back, but his heart and spirit were saved from thousands of batsmans of fear and feeling obliged to others. By the way, if you're confused, these terms, kiye, oka, batsman, these were actually forms of currency that was used in the Ottoman Empire. These were used during the Ottoman Empire. The writer of the Risale-i Nur, Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, he was actually someone who lived during during the Ottoman Empire. Okay, and so that's why he's using these terms. So if you're confused, they're just forms of so things like a batman or okka. These are just forms of currency. Okay. For wait, actually, yeah, not currency, my bad, but in terms of weight. All right. These were things. These were my bad. So yeah, they're not currency, but they're like forms of weighting, like measuring. Okay, it's like they weigh this much, like etc. etc. Okay, so as for the other, so yeah, his spirit was saved from thousands of batmans of fear and feeling watched others. As for the other luckless soldier, he left the army. He did not want to conform to the order, and he went off to the left. He was released from bearing the load of one batman, but his heart was constricted by thousands of batmans of indebtedness, and his spirit crushed by innumerable fears. He proceeded on his way, both begging from everyone and trembling before every object and every event until he reached his destination. And there he was punished as a mutineer and as a deserter. So let's stop here, okay? So, briefly summarize, commander tells the two soldiers, go to this city. So the two soldiers go on this path, then it forks off. Goes into two separate paths, okay? And one of the men, now the man at the fork of the path tells them, on one side there's great benefit, great ease. On the other side, unbeneficial, great loss. Okay, but on one path it's anarchic, no rule, you don't have to carry anything. And on the other path there is rule, there is order, and you do have to carry some stuff. But they are the same in terms of distance. Okay, and so the two soldiers listen. And the fortunate soldier takes the right path, okay? And yes, he does take the kit bag and the rifle with him, which is a bit burdensome. It is a bit heavy, but his heart and spirit were saved from thousands of batsmans of fear and being obliged to others because he has rations to provide for himself, right? So when he gets hungry, when he needs sustenance, right, he can use the rations. Whenever he encounters an enemy that wants to hurt him, right, he has the rifle to protect himself. Okay. On top of that, there's order on the path that he takes. There's military order. It's not anarchy. There's no chaos. Okay. It's not. There's no lawlessness. And so because of all these reasons, he doesn't feel obliged to others. Like he owes something to others, right? He doesn't have to beg from them, beg for their help. And he doesn't have to be fearful, right? Because there's law and order on this path. And I also have a weapon to protect myself. And I also have a food. Otherwise, he would be fearful, right? How am I going to provide for myself? What am I going to do if, I get attacked, right? XYZ, etc. But the other man, he's not so fortunate. He takes the other path, okay? And yes, he doesn't have to carry the rifle. He doesn't have to carry the kit bag, the bag of rations. Okay. Also, there's no rule, so he doesn't have to conform to the army, right? He leaves the army, by the way. Let's keep that in mind. This man leaves the army. The other man doesn't. But this man, who takes the left path, he leaves the army. Okay. And he was released from bearing a load of 1 batman. So yes, he doesn't have to carry those stuff that the other man does carry. But his heart was constricted by thousands of batmans of indebtedness. Indebtedness is basically the state of, being in debt, like owing something to someone, whether it's money or whether it's gratitude, right? This man doesn't have rations, right? So he doesn't have food. So he goes on this path. He doesn't have food. How's he going to get food, right? He's going to have to beg people for food, okay? He doesn't have a gun, so what's going to happen when he encounters enemy? He's going to have to beg for their mercy. Okay, he's going to be trembling in fear. It's similar to the two men in the first in the story that was given in the first word, like a few chapters back. In the first word, we have two men going into the desert. One of the men takes himself under the protection of a tribal chief. The other man doesn't take himself under the protection of a tribal chief, and their situations are quite different. Now, the man who takes himself under the protection of a tribal chief, he travels with ease, right? If he goes to a nomadic camp, the nomads, they respect the tribal chief. So, they give him food or they'll give him shelter. If he encounters bandits, he can tell them, I'm traveling under the protection of the tribal chief. And the bandits won't hurt him because, they're fearful of the tribal chief. But the other man, he doesn't, he's arrogant, he's conceited. So he doesn't put himself under the protection of a tribal chief. He ends up going through indescribable calamities, okay? He has to beg the nomads for food. He gets robbed by the bandits, right? So it's really bad, okay? And so, oh my bad. Going back to the first word. Anyways, going back, yeah. So this other man who takes, going back to the analogy that we're currently reading, this man who takes the left path, he doesn't have any weapons, so he can't protect himself. He can't provide for himself. I mean, yes, he doesn't have to carry those things, but his situation is really difficult. Okay? And so he proceeded on his way, and yeah, and his spirit, it says here, his spirit was crushed by innumerable fears. He has to fear enemies, he has to fear his needs, like how am I going to provide for myself? What am I going to do if this happens, this and that, right? And then he finally reaches the city. They are the same in terms of distance, the two paths. And when he reaches the city, he did leave the army, so he gets punished as a deserter. Okay? Moving on to this next page, okay? As for the soldier, who loved the order of the army, had guarded his kit bag and rifle, and taken the right-hand road. He had gone on his way, being obliged to no one, fearing no one, and with an easy heart and conscience, until he reached the city he was seeking. There he received a reward worthy of an honorable soldier who had carried out his duty faithfully. Okay? So while the other soldier, he leaves the army, goes on the lawless path, the other soldier, he takes the right path, which is under military control and military order, or to say. He's faithful to the army, to the commander, and then he gets rewarded when he reaches his destination. So he guards his kit bag and rifle, so he keeps them with him. Yes, it's heavy, it's burdensome, but he still holds those things. Okay? And he has an easy heart and conscience. So he's not distressed, he's not worried, right? He's at ease. Okay? There's two terms here. At ease and then ill at ease. Ill at ease means to be like uncomfortable or like worried. But at ease, like you're relaxed. Okay? And that describes the situation of the man who takes the right path. Okay? Now, I'm going to stop here because I don't want to make this video extremely long, okay? But inshallah, we will continue in our next videos, but I do want to summarize what we have read so far, okay? So, the Risale-i Nur gives us the Risale-i Nur gives us an analogy, gives us a story about two men who, need to go to the city, okay? And we're given this story, but there's more to the story than what we're just told, okay? These two men represent something. They represent someone. So the man who takes the right path, who abides by the commander, who stays faithful, he represents the person who worships God. He represents the believer, the individual who worships God and stays faithful to God. The other man, the other soldier who takes the left path, who becomes a renegade, okay? He goes down the lawless, anarchic path. Pretty sure it's pronounced anarchic, okay? He suffers a lot, and then he gets punished because he left the army. That man represents the person who doesn't worship God, okay? And you might be wondering, what is the connection? Like, what does worship have to have to do here, right? What's the connection? Okay. Well, when you know about the man who takes the right path, what does he have to carry? He carries a kit bag and a rifle. And these two possessions that he has to carry actually point to something. The kit bag points to man's infinite neediness. And the rifle points to man's infinite weakness. What does that mean? So in terms of our weakness, we are infinitely weak. Infinitely weak. All right, this is talked about in the first word. Okay? We are so weak, okay? We have infinite, our desires stretch out as far as the eye can see, okay? You could be, imagine you're like on top of this dune in like a desert, okay? Your desire, and you see the horizon, right? There's just an endless, vast expanse of dunes. That's how far your desires extend to, okay? You need sustenance, you need water, you need food, you need shelter, and you also want things, right? You want security, you want a home, you want wealth, you want happiness, you want a good a family, right? You want a lot of things. You want a lot of things, you need a lot of things. Your desire, your need, they're infinite, okay? And you're also infinitely weak. So the other one, you're infinitely needy, but you're also infinitely weak. You're infinitely weak. So you're infinitely needy and you're also infinitely weak. Um, you have innumerable enemies. This has been discussed in the previous chapter, in the previous chapters, right? You're also, I believe, in the first word, you're also infinitely weak. Your enemies are endless. And an enemy for us, it doesn't have to literally be like a person who's like trying to kill you or whatever, or trying to oppose you. That can definitely be one. An enemy can also be many different things. It could be a natural disaster. It could be the severe decline of the economy. Those are enemies. It could also be, like illness, sickness, disease. Those are also enemies. Right? Look at COVID. Look at COVID. COVID's an enemy, for example. Look at COVID. COVID's a virus. It killed millions of people, right? A virus killed millions of people, right? So we have infinite enemies, and we also have infinite. We're infinitely weak. My God, we're infinitely weak, though that's also true. We're infinitely weak, and we're also infinitely needy. Okay. So the question is, okay, well, what do we do, right? I have endless needs, desires, and I also have endless enemies. So what do I do in this world, which is like a desert, like a treacherous desert that's filled with dangers? What do I do? Well, the answer is worship, okay? Because there is an almighty creator, and we can seek refuge in that almighty creator. That's what worship is. In order to secure our needs, in order to get protection, in order to protect ourselves, in order to get protected from those dangers, from those enemies, we need to seek refuge in God. And this is done with worship. We need to worship God. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says God would not attach God would not attach any importance to you if if it hadn't been for your worship. More or less in the verse here. Like if you didn't worship God, like God would not attach importance to you if you did not worship Him. That's why it's very important for us to worship God so that we can secure our needs and so that we can be protected from the tribulations, the calamities of this life. Because this life, as is said in the Risale-i Nur, is like a desert. Okay? And in order to protect, and here's the thing. If we're not like the man, the fortunate man who takes the right path, right? So basically he's the one who does the worship in terms of but the other man, right, if we're like the other man who doesn't who takes the left path, we're gonna be like the one who doesn't worship. But what's gonna happen when we don't worship God, right? And this is similar to once again to the first word, taking yourself under the protection of the tribal chief. If we don't take ourselves under the protection of God, if we don't worship God, and if we don't seek refuge in Him, what's going to happen is we're going to be like the second man in this analogy that we just read. We're going to tremble before everything. We're going to be crushed by fears. Okay? And then we're going to be punished, right? Because what the final revelation that comes to us, it gives us commandments. We don't follow those commandments. If we don't worship God, we're going to be punished for that because we are held accountable for what we do in this world. Okay? So that's what I have to say. Um, I hope you guys were able to learn something from this. And the reason I'm actually making a video, I made a video today, was because I hadn't made a video in a while. So in order to compensate for that, I made a video a few days ago and I decided to also make a video today. Inshallah, I'll also make a video tomorrow, continuing our analysis of the third word. And inshallah ta'ala, I will see you guys next time.